We're back and we are continuing the UFC 314 fight card. This being Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes for the vacant featherweight title. Remember, this week will be a live stream, live watch party for this fight card to be there. But apart from that, let's get right into today's video. Today we have Jean Silva versus Bryce Mitchell. Jean Silva is 15-2. His country is Brazil. He stands at 5'7" tall, weighed at 145 pounds, 50 in his last win, has a reach of 69 inches and a leg reach of 36.5 inches. While Bryce Mitchell on the other hand, now Bryce Mitchell has gone through a lot of controversies in the past year. I'm not going to get into it in this video. I've gotten into it in past streams. I have my thoughts and opinions on Bryce Mitchell after the whole controversy. I'm not here to talk about that. Do I support or stand with what he said? Not at all. But like I said, we're not here to talk about that. I'm here to be unbiased as possible. I'm here to give you my thoughts and opinions on who I think is going to win, not who I want to win because of the past. So let's continue. Bryce Mitchell is 17-3. His country is the United States. Stands at 5'10" tall, weighed at 146 pounds in his last win, has a reach of 70 inches and a leg reach of 40 inches. A few things to go off of here. Bryce Mitchell is 3 inches taller. The weight is going to be roughly the same. Don't know why I'm talking about that. Reach 1 inch goes into Mitchell's favor, nothing too significant, and a 3.5 inch leg reach difference here going in Bryce Mitchell's favor. Again, like I say in every video, if you can kick someone, you can hit someone. So Bryce Mitchell should try and avoid the kicks, but if he does need to, it's there. They both have a fairly close reach, so if he can kick him, he could probably punch him at the same time as well. Well, no, he can, but they'll both connect because the reach is so close between these two. But Bryce Mitchell does have a little bit of a longer leg reach, so if he's quick with his legs, he'll be okay. But Jean Silva is very deadly. Let's move on to win buys. Moving us swiftly on to win buys. 6% KO TKO here for Bryce Mitchell, 53% submission, 41% decision with an average fight time set at 12 minutes and a knockdown average of 0. While Jean Silva on the other hand has an 80% KO TKO, 13% submission, 7% decision with an average fight time at 8 minutes and a knockdown average of 1. So far, Jean Silva has the most knockouts. He has got some submissions, not many, but he's still deadly on the feet, still deadly on the ground as well. 7% decision, so he hardly ever sees a decision. While Bryce Mitchell on the other hand does see a fair few decisions. Is quite good at grappling. No, is very good at grappling. Over half of his wins are submissions and okay on the feet. Average fight time, Jean Silva takes it massively with an 8 minutes, while Bryce Mitchell's sitting at 12 minutes, and the knockdown's going to Jean Silva's favor. Jean Silva's going to be a lot more deadly on the feet. I think Bryce Mitchell will be deadlier on the ground, but I don't think Bryce Mitchell will get down. And as we know, Bryce Mitchell has had the most deadliest KO, or one of the most deadliest KOs in the UFC against, who was it? Against Josh Emmett, where Josh Emmett slept the shit out of him. And that's a fact. It's not like I'm trying to make the situation sound worse than what it was. It was a bad knockout for him. But now let's move on to some other win by stats. We're going to start here with Bryce Mitchell being 17-2. Also, I've noticed my camera isn't in the center. My bad. Here we go. He has 6%. Okay, no, that's not what I was going to read. He has 1 KO and TKO, 1 loss by KO and TKO. He has 9 submissions, 1 loss by submission, 7 losses by decision. No, 7 wins by decision and 0 losses by decision. He has 8 wins in UFC and 2 losses. Josh Emmett knocked him out in round 1 with 2 minutes in with an overhand right. This was on the Edwards versus Covington fight card. He beat Kron Gracie with elbows. He knocked out Kron Gracie in his previous fight, and he beat Dan Ige back in 2023. So based off of his, and he got submitted by Ilia Topuria. Then he beat Edson Barboza, Andre Fili, Charles Rosa, and that is, I think, where we're going to go down to is there. So most of his wins previously are becoming by decision, and all of his losses are by stoppage. He's been stopped every single time that he's lost, which is only the Ilia Topuria one, Josh Emmett, and I think Jean Silva does get the better of him. But very quickly, let's quickly go over this. If Bryce Mitchell is to lose, how would I expect him to lose? Due to previous fights, he has won by decision. I would go decision win. I would also give him a submission win, possibly, because that is what he wins mostly by. Now, where would he lose from? I would say stoppages. Now, would I say a submission here for Jean Silva? No. Would I say knockout for Jean Silva? Yes. I think Jean Silva will stop him with a knockout. I think that's how it will go. I think that's how the fight plays out. I think that's what happens. That does not mean Jean Silva can't submit him, but I don't think he will. And that doesn't mean that Bryce Mitchell will lose either. He might win, but if I'm to say who I think is going to win, I would give it to Jean Silva, and I think he would stop him. Let's move on to Jean Silva's stats right now. So Jean Silva also 15-2. He has 12 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission, and 2 losses by decision with 1 win by decision. He has 4 wins in UFC and 1 win in the Contender Series. Something not noted down here. Okay, so he hasn't lost in the UFC just yet. So we want to look at UFC stats, which is all, we don't really care about contender series. It's all these. He beat Weston Wilson via knockout in 2024. He beat Charles Jourdain also by knockout in 2024. Drew Dober, he beat him by doctor stoppage, and then he beat Melsik Bagdasaryan as well via knockout as well. Well, that would be a TKO, but the point is he knocked out all of his previous opponents. He has knocked them all out. Well, apart from Drew Dober, which was a doctor stoppage. But the point is, he's deadly. He's very deadly. So yeah, every single one of his wins has been by a knockout, and in contender series he won by a decision. So based off of these stats, I would say Jean Silva would get the knockout, and Bryce Mitchell would probably get a decision, not a submission, because his last, was it 4 or 5 fights we looked at, hasn't won by submission for a while, has lost by submission, has been knocked out. How does his chin hold up to Jean Silva's power compared to Josh Emmett's? We're gonna have to wait and see. I think Jean Silva hits harder than Josh Emmett, but we will have to wait and see this Saturday. So let's move on to our last bit of stats here, which in my opinion is the most exciting ones, because it's the significant strikes and the grappling. We're going to put them all together and we're going to go through this very quickly. Jean Silva has an average of 5 punches landed per minute, 53% significant strikes, an average of 4 punches absorbed per minute with a defense of 58%. While Bryce Mitchell on the other hand has an average of 2 punches landed per minute, 59% significant strikes, an average of 2 punches absorbed per minute with a defense of 60%. Quickly running us down here, Jean Silva had the better output and landing per minute. He had a little bit of a worse significant strikes percentage, but he was outputting quite a bit, was landing a bit, so it's not going to be as high as Bryce Mitchell, who's only landed a fair few. Jean Silva absorbed quite a bit in his last fight. Bryce Mitchell didn't absorb much, so it was probably a grappling match, but Jean Silva can take a few punches and give a few of his own and still win the fight by a knockout. The defense goes in Bryce Mitchell's favor, and Jean Silva, yeah, it's close with defense. So if we're going off of this, Bryce Mitchell did better at defense, absorbing, better at landing significant strikes, but he didn't do well at having a better landed per minute or output. So again, even though a lot of the stats go in Bryce Mitchell's favor, I would still give it to Jean Silva, because Jean Silva, if Bryce Mitchell's only landing 2 punches per minute, then Jean Silva should be fine. He should be able to absorb that and throw back and probably get a knockout here. If I'm Bryce Mitchell, I'm not trading. Do not trade with Jean Silva. Don't trade. Don't let Jean Silva move on the front foot. It's going to be a very tough fight for Bryce Mitchell if he allows Jean Silva to take the upper hand, because Jean Silva will take the upper hand and will dominate the fight. Now let's move on to the grappling. Okay, Bryce Mitchell had an average of 3 takedowns, 43% takedown accuracy, 33% takedown defense with a submission average of 1, while Jean Silva on the other hand had a takedown average of 1, 50% takedown accuracy, 80% takedown defense with a submission average of 0. Quickly run us through these stats. Bryce Mitchell did better at the takedowns, had a worse takedown accuracy, and had a much worse takedown defense with a submission average better. Now, although a lot of the stats do go into Bryce Mitchell's favor, the best stat he has here is the takedown average and the submission average, so he has 2. Well, Jean Silva, yeah, he can get the takedowns. His takedown accuracy's okay, it's decent, but his takedown defense is what's going to win him the fight. He needs to defend the takedowns from Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell needs to get him down, go for a submission, and Jean Silva needs to keep it on the feet and dominate. Bryce Mitchell needs to do the same thing, but in the opposite way, and get the takedowns. If he starts to get the upper hand on the feet, he cannot stay on the feet, in my opinion. I don't think he should stay on the feet. Even if he is beating Jean Silva on the feet, he should get the takedowns and go for a submission, but that's just my thoughts, my opinions on that. Okay, so our final bit of, I guess, rundown here. How do I think this fight plays out? How do I think this fight plays out? I think Jean Silva gets the better of him. I think Jean Silva's going to start quick and fast, and he's going to get the upper hand. He's going to be very dominant, and Bryce Mitchell's going to try and trade for whatever reason, and he's going to get caught. And I think it'll be an early night for Jean Silva. He will get an early win here in the Octagon this Saturday at UFC 314. But that's just my thoughts and my opinions and my predictions roughly. What do you guys think? Who do you think wins and how do you think they win? Apart from that, I'll catch you in a bit. Take care and peace.